In early March, Diana Barrett was one of New York's first COVID-19 cases.
Hi everyone, this is day 8 of my Corona journal.
Through daily posts, she shared her journey and what she learned about the virus.
It's going to be a longer recovery than I had anticipated.
But months later, her journey hasn't ended.
The frightening thing is what we are seeing is that people are not recovering.
And she's not alone.
There's a lot of people that don't want to believe this is true. But, this is one of those things that's true, whether or not you want to believe it or not.
Dr. Daniel Griffin is the chief of infectious diseases at ProHealth New York and has treated more than 1,000 COVID-19 patients.
In about May, when you started to see people say, I'm really not getting better. A few weeks, and we said, that's fine. You were really sick. Give it some time. But then people started saying, it's been some time. It's been a month. It's been 2 months. It's been 3 months.
Symptoms include everything from loss of taste and smell, hair falling out, and more serious issues, including lung and heart damage.
And I worry about the people that have the heart damage, who are having trouble going up a flight of stairs. So what will be the long-term thing? Can those lungs ever heal, or is this permanent?
A CDC study revealed 35% of people who test positive for COVID-19 and have symptoms aren't better after 2 or 3 weeks, and even after they've stopped testing positive. They call themselves long haulers.
But now as we're looking at it, we're realizing a lot of patients have a long haul, that COVID is not just like the flu. It's not just a few days and then a few percent of people feel crummy.
But there are only theories as to why it happens.
The simple answer that, physicians never like to go with, but is the truth, is we don't know. We're learning.
Barrett has continued to see specialists and deals with new medical problems from the virus, including issues with vision and reoccurring headaches.
Let me tell you, this is not a matter of having the flu or ending up on a ventilator. There is an extraordinarily large bucket in the middle that you do not want to end up in.
The true total number of long haulers, like much of the virus, remains unknown.
That's really important to remember. As a country, we are tracking infections, we are tracking hospitalization, and we are tracking mortality. But 95% of people, if not more, are left to recover at home like I did with Gatorade and Tylenol.
In the coming days, we'll introduce you to more people.
My hair has shed quite a bit.
Doubted by doctors unaware of the virus's long-term impact.
He told me I needed a psychiatrist, that most of this is in my head.
Some not believed even by friends and family.
I became suicidal at that point.
We'll share the journey of doctors to learn why long hauling happens and how survivors struggle to recover and be recognized.
We probably have more people still suffering from COVID, unable to return to work, unable to return to their daily life the way they used to be, than people died of COVID.
In Fort Worth, I'm William Joy. Life in a world locked down has been lonely for all of us. Those battling COVID-19 in hospitals are left to fight without friends and family. But those most alone may be the ones you've never heard of. Neighbors who are still struggling with symptoms of the virus months later.
It's been hell pretty much since March.
Ellen DeMarco woke up with a scratchy throat in late March and noticed she'd lost her sense of taste.
The next few weeks after that were pure misery, like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't catch my breath.
Months after testing positive, she's struggling with hair loss, nausea, brain fog, and sometimes she can't swallow.
I feel like at some point in time, this virus is going to take my life. And it may not be today, and it may not be tomorrow, but I feel like there's going to be a long-term effect from this.
In the state hit hardest by the virus, doctors are seeing countless cases just like Ellen, often referred to as long haulers, dealing with symptoms weeks and months after they've stopped testing positive.
We're seeing a consistent pattern in thousands of patients in multiple countries. And I think at this point, the people that don't believe it are people who just don't want to believe it despite the science, despite all the observations.
Dr. Daniel Griffin is the chief of infectious disease at ProHealth New York, where he's treated more than 1,000 COVID-19 patients.
We probably have more people still suffering from COVID, unable to return to work, unable to return to their daily life the way they used to be, then people died of COVID.
They're not just in New York. Ellen lives in Denton, and there are others who want to bring awareness to a part of COVID-19 not often talked about.
Mentally, it is the biggest roller coaster I've ever been on.
Talia Dodds is in Fort Worth dealing with hair loss, and doctors say she had a mild heart attack while fighting for air.
I remember breathing was a lot like, imagine having a Capri Sun straw and having it in your mouth and having it duct taped shut.
This thing hit me like a ton of bricks.
Kenneth Nading would wake up in the middle of the night in Dallas unable to breathe. His heart so damaged by the virus, he now calls it a squeaky toy.
That's pretty much what it feels like. I can sometimes actually hear it if it's a real quiet room and it's really going.
Callie Fields in Grand Prairie,
thanking the Lord every day,
was the only one of the 4 who ended up hospitalized.
I cried a great deal.
She's been home for months since her 3-week hospital stay. Her hair is falling out so much she's afraid to brush it, and she struggles with insomnia and constant fatigue.
I'm pushing the cart maybe 3 hours down. By the time I get to the checkout, I have to stop and catch a breath. I didn't used to have to do that.
For months, they all thought they were the only ones, even doubted by friends and family.
It's very lonely. It's very, very lonely. You feel like, and it's not that they don't care, because I know that they care. That is not, they just don't understand it.
But then they found a Facebook group and each other.
They are being gaslit by their doctors who are diagnosing them with anxiety.
Diana Barrett was one of New York's first COVID-19 cases and is the founder of Survivor Corps, a Facebook group for long haulers.
We're talking about 25-year-olds who were marathon runners before, and they are 5 months into it and they can't walk to the corner.
They now have more than 100,000 members.
Banding together for us to encourage one another was the most important part.
One study found 87% of those hospitalized with the virus still had at least one symptom 2 months later.
I kind of took that step back and go, okay, now I have a group of people that know what I'm going through.
And I don't want to say gratifying because it wasn't gratifying, but it was so reassuring and so comforting that I wasn't losing my mind, that I wasn't stupid and I wasn't crazy, that it's really, really happening and I'm not imagining it.
But the page hasn't just provided emotional support.
I think that these groups have really helped to get this on the radar.
Griffin says doctors still don't know why some suffer long-term symptoms and others don't.
The current thinking is this is somehow related to some immune dysfunction that is provoked during the acute illness.
COVID-19 is not a virus where the only score is if you live or die.
I'd like to know what I can do to convince people to take this more seriously.
Talia lost her job, so did Callie, and Ellen and her husband are now both unemployed as medical bills pile up.
Yeah, we're having to sell the house because clearly we can't afford it. This virus has affected every aspect of my life.
No one knows how long the hundreds of thousands of long haulers will deal with the symptoms and impact of the virus.
I'll just be, watching a movie and then I gasp and fight to catch my breath.
But through Survivor Corps, they're now believed instead of doubted, together instead of alone.
That we have to encourage each other that we're going to make it through this.
The more people realize that this is real and that it's not all political and it's not a hoax, that maybe it'll be taken a little more serious.
In Fort Worth, I'm William Joy.
The frightening thing is what we are seeing is that people are not recovering.
With now more than 100,000 members, Diana Barrett's Survivor Corps Facebook group was one of the first to recognize long haulers, also called long COVID.
We have been sort of, you could say, the canary in the COVID coal mine.
There are only guesses to what the future holds. Recent studies estimate 10% of those who get COVID still have symptoms more than a month later. That would mean more than 1 million long haulers nationwide.
Any flight of stairs, about a flight and a half, and I'm really breathing.
Kenneth Nading worked out often before getting the virus, but now 8 months later, he's still dealing with damage to his heart.
Now you don't know how it's going to hit. And you don't know whom you're affecting.
The long-term symptoms can impact anyone, but are more often found in women over 35. Across North Texas, we spoke to people experiencing everything from hair loss and brain fog to breathing and swallowing complications, like Talia Dodds in Fort Worth.
I understand people going, it's just a worse version of the flu. It's not that bad. And I understand that. The thing is, I've had the flu. 5 months later, I wasn't still suffering from the effects of the flu.
Science is only beginning to grasp the mysterious lingering illness, but as support groups like Survivor Corps grow, so does awareness among medical professionals.
Part of what we can do to help them is just the education, just saying, okay, this is what we're seeing. What are you experiencing?
Dr. Daniel Griffin treats patients in New York. He says while there's no cure, aspirin and pain relievers can make life manageable.
Now that we've started saying, why don't you take a naproxen or an ibuprofen before bed, people are coming saying, oh my gosh, that really made a difference.
Through telemedicine, long haulers are now connecting with doctors across the country.
My list of symptoms is extensive.
Ellen DeMarco discovered she had 7 ribs out of place from coughing, but her health began improving when a doctor prescribed steroids.
She immediately wanted testing done. And I have to tell you, when I got off the phone with her, I completely lost it, crying hysterically because somebody believed me. She was the first doctor that actually believed me.
In New York, one of the nation's early hotspots, centers designed for long haulers have already sprung up.
We are going to need post-COVID care centers throughout the country. We need medical care for these people who are experiencing debilitating results of having had COVID.
Long haulers have faced doubt over their symptoms and even the virus's existence.
Nobody can tell me any different. I'm sorry, you can't. I've experienced it for myself. And it's a horrible experience. Horrible.
We've had that brush with the possibility of not surviving it.
Less than a year ago, this virus was unknown. Right now, solutions for long haulers are temporary, and the outlook is impossible to predict.
I don't want anyone to have to go through this. This is not a way to live the way that I'm living right now.
While the world pushes to stop the spread, doctors and researchers are hoping to find answers and peace for the countless long haulers still suffering.
There are clinicians who are versed in this, there are clinicians who understand this, and there are clinicians that can be of some help.
In Fort Worth,
This too shall pass.
I'm William Joy.